Well, that's what we're focusing on this morning, and we're being joined on Sunrise Daily by Bayo Rotimi, the financial analyst. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the show this morning.
A pleasure.
Now we have the 2018 budget, and hopefully the National Assembly will quickly assent to it and then pass it back to the President so it goes into law. But hearing the conversations and the build-up to this, what do you make of the possibility of having a smooth passage?
Thank you very much. I think the first thing we need to look at is timing. Government mentioned consistently earlier this year that there is a need to move to a January to December cycle. The intention was to get the budget before the National Assembly sometime in October. And I'm sure a few other Nigerians expected that that will happen in the early part of October so that the National Assembly will have almost 3 months to review and hopefully sign off on this document. Now, it gets in yesterday, the 6th or the 7th of November, and we have barely a month and a half to the end of the year. So clearly the target of a January 1st implementation, my view, is challenged, is unlikely, given all of the reviews, all of the presentations, all of the budget defenses that have to happen. So my sense is, yet again, we're putting ourselves under pressure from day one. And as we hurry along, maybe some of the rigor that is required in terms of x-raying this document may not actually happen. So I already see the beginnings of some tension because the executive obviously will be pushing for a very quick passage. The National Assembly, on the other hand, will be pushing back to say we have a constitutional responsibility to check every single line item.
But the President of the Senate said that the passage of this will largely depend on the good relationship that is being shared between the executive and the legislatures. How much more of that do you think will come into play in getting this done?
Well, my sense is, it's always important for there to be a harmonious relationship between the executive and the National Assembly, the legislature. But they also owe Nigerians a responsibility to review the budget thoroughly. What has been presented yesterday were just the highlights, the high-level budget delivery, the fine lines, the details will now have to, first of all, be released by the Minister of Budget and National Planning, and after that, the National Assembly will then take this document apart. So I hope that the relationship is getting warmer. I hope as a result of that, there will be an increase. But from some of the sounds we're hearing, there may be still some latent tension between these two organs of government. So they probably need to sit behind closed doors and try to harmonize all of these things.
Okay, now looking at the figure, it's about 8.6 trillion, and we're having about 30.8 to go into infrastructure projects.
Correct.
How much of this will impact, considering that 2017, the budget itself has come under scrutiny,
Correct.
Has been largely underfunded?
Correct. Thank you very much, Gimba. I think that's an excellent question. We need to always interrogate what has happened in the past, and sometimes that will give us some indication about what may happen in the future. The President was kind enough to give us a review by himself of the 2017 budget. He says that the budget, as far as capital expenditure, as at now, I think only about $450 billion naira, has been released so far. He is hopeful that by the end of December, up to 50% of the capital budget would have been expended. He also says on the revenue side, particularly the non-oil revenue, there has been a significant shortfall. Right, we only achieved, in effect, about 26% of the revenue expectation in the non-oil sector. That says to me that clearly there is a challenge in funding our budgets, which is why you continue to see government borrowing as aggressively as they are doing. Now, borrowing obviously comes at a cost. So whether you are borrowing locally at extremely high cost or you are starting to borrow more increasingly offshore, it is also coming at a cost. We've raised $1.5 billion from the Eurobond market. The Eurobond market is not cheap. So Clearly, there is a funding challenge, and we all need to sit down and ensure that whatever needs to be done to drive internally generated revenues, in addition to revenues coming from our exports. Fortunately for us in Nigeria, oil prices have been moving in the right direction. So you will see that even Nigeria coming out of recession, came out of recession largely on the back of a buoyant oil economy. So we must not lose sight of the fact that oil is still the major driver of this economy.